we're going to be taking a look at Soundiron's latest entry into their growing line of solo vocal sample libraries titled Voice of Gaia Strawberry. For the voice of Gaia, Soundiron collaborated with LA-based mezzo-soprano Linda Strawberry. Linda is a multi-talented musician that has worked with a great number of different recording artists, including Billy Corrigan. Linda has an extremely emotive and dynamic character to her voice that's perfect for cinematic scoring as well as anything from EDM to dreampop. Much in the same way as we've seen in the voice of Rapture, the voice of Gaia is laid out in a similar fashion, and at one end we have captured phrase material, and on the other end we have multi-sample material, which consists of the true legato vowel ah, different sustain types, as well as staccato multi-samples. Linda was recorded in a warm studio environment. However, with the voice of Gaia, we now have the inclusion of two very distinct microphones that can be activated and deactivated, mixed and or panned to whichever way you would prefer. For the purposes of this screencast, I put together a very brief demonstration that consists of content exclusive to the voice of Gaia. I'm going to go ahead and play that for you now, and at the end we're going to take a finer look into the patches themselves and their overall functionality. So I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you at the end. Okay, so now let's take a look at some of the patches that were included in what we just heard. So all the way at the top, we have the true legato ah vowel. Then we have two different types of sustain tracks. One is sustains pad mode, which is an infinitely looping version of the sustains patch. And then we have just the normal sustains. Now, with the sustains patches, you could choose their play mode per se, in which it would be infinite, where you have an infinitely looping sample, and then you could put it in natural, which there will be a natural release at the end of the performance from Linda, which can really aid you in different types of realism and or just a general approach to how you want to use them. Here we have phrases in E, time stretch. Now we have dozens and dozens of different phrases that were captured for this library from Linda. And the great thing about them is that there really is just a huge universal application for them that you can use in so many different formats. So we'll take a closer look at how the phrase patches are laid out. Here under breaths, this comes from the vocal effects patch. Like we saw in Voice of Rapture, we have a number of different breathing recordings captured from Linda. Here we have the multi-sample staccato patch, and all the way at the bottom we have one of the many different ambiances that were captured and derived exclusively from the sample content in this library. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the sustains pad mode patch first. Okay, so here we have the sustains pad mode patch. Now, for the purposes of this brief little cue that we listened to, nothing special here. This is just a basic E major pad that's laid out with a volume swell. And now taking a look at the patch itself, let's take a peek at what some of the different functionalities that we have that have been included in the voice of Gaia. So of the different types of sustain vowels that we have, what we heard in the track was O at piano level. We also have O at forte, ah at piano, ah at forte, O at piano, and U. So each of these can be configured via key switch or however you'd like to go about selecting them. As we said earlier, this is set to play mode infinite, which means that the sample will continue to loop for an infinite period of time, and there won't be an automatic release. If we were to change this to natural mode, there is a release at the end of the performance. So before we move on, let me just go ahead and show you what the two different mic positions sound like. As we had said earlier, you can mix and match, deactivate these, and pan these however you would like. What I've done in this particular patch here is I've activated both mic positions at 64 for volume, 63, and I've hard panned them to the left and right so I could create a wire stereo field for this particular pad. But let me go ahead and play you what these actual mic positions sound like. So I'll just bring these back to center, and I will go ahead and play those for you right now. So this is mic 1 on its own. Okay, so two very distinct characters to that microphone. And also, if you noticed up here too, when you activate and or deactivate the mic positions, the samples will be purged from memory, which is a really great resource efficient tool. Okay, so here we're taking a look at the phrase patch that's included. Now, quite a few things I want to point out to you on this, since these do make up more than 50% of the library. So this is just a performance on its own, and I'll just note that on each of the patches that are included, you do have full access to the effects rack, which you've probably become accustomed to at this point with Soundiron's recent libraries. So you do have reverb, delay, EQ, different amps, a distortion unit, a chorus unit, and even an onboard compressor. But for this particular piece, I just opted for an external reverb and delay. But these are, very good quality that are included in here. So some really nice options within. And on top of that, for this track, I just have some additional EQ and compression as well. So when I'm going to go ahead and play this for you, I want you just to pay close attention to two things here. As you can see, there's an overlap between the notes to form a type of legato transition. And on the patch itself here, I have the crossfade functionality enabled, and I've got the crossfade strength up to 97%. So it's a rather strong crossfade. So when you do this, no matter where you are in the phrase sample that you're triggering, it will transition to the other sample. So you're actually able to form your own melodies based upon the phrases that are contained in the library. So it gives you a number of different options there. So let me just go ahead and play that, and you can see on the transient on board when that happens. So let me just play that for you right now. All right, so just a few more things that I want to point out to you on the freeze patch. From what you see here, I've selected under time mode. Now you have a couple of different options here. What I have set for this particular portion of the track is to time mode free. If I were to click on this, this goes to sync, which will tempo sync the phrase to your sequencer. As you see here in the key of E, this is set to 80 BPM. So if I set this to sync, this will just play along to the BPM that is set to my sequencer, which is at 120 at this point. Actually, no, sorry, that drops down, but this is what it would sound like. Now, if I go to free mode, I have this stretch control here, which actually allows you to manually expand or constrict the sample to whichever timing you'd want. So it gives you a lot more flexibility on that end, which is what I opted for here. So now if you hear me playing it on free mode, this is stretched to a value of 70. So as you can hear, it's quite a bit slower than when we had it to sync mode, where it would be going to near 100 BPM, which we have in the timeline right now. So that is how you do it manually. Or if you want to just take time mode off altogether, this is just the mode at which it was recorded, which would be 80 BPM. So altogether, you have 3 different options for how you would like to control the timing. Now, if we take a look here into the menu, these are all of the different phrase sets that we have. So this is between all on E. So this patch itself is just phrases in E. So otherwise, we have phrases in A sharp, phrases in C, phrases in D, phrases in F sharp, and phrases in G sharp. So you have quite a different number of options there. So like I said, there's literally a massive amount of phrases that were recorded for the voice of Gaia. So that's taking a look at that. Now, one thing that I want to point out, which is a really great feature, if you wanted to, say, change these key switches, because right now, to change the actual song that you're on, what you can do is set this to play, and then say I'm going to go over to C0 to set those as my key switches. So as you can see now, the keyboard just became black down here at the bottom. So now when I'm going to go ahead and play the key switches, it's actually going to change the set. So now I'm on set 2, set 1, 100 BPM, set 2, and so forth and so forth. So this is a really great flexible option to customize your key switches. All right, so before we move on to the staccato, the last piece that I want to show you for the phrase patches is the powerful sequencer that's included. So in order to go ahead and move with that, we're going to have to activate it. We just go ahead and click that button there, and you're going to want to make sure that the time mode is set to off when you're using this. Now, with Voice of Gaia, you have full independent control of each of the phrases that you add to your sequence. So for this demonstration, I just have 2, which was the 2 phrases that we just heard at the beginning there. And you could see which note on the keyboard they correspond to. You could set the number of steps. So if I wanted to just continue this on, you could very easily do that. So let's just bring this down to 2. Current step shows you which one you're editing, and you could just click on those simply. Now, one of the great things is you have full independent control over each one for a number of couple of different features. As you can see, there's your start and your end time. So for the second piece of the sequence, I have pulled the release or the end point back a little bit, so it's actually going to end the phrase. So when I'm going to go ahead and start the sequence, which you can do on this key right down here, you'll hear how that happens. So take a listen. All right, so that is just a really quick overview of what you can do with the sequencer. But as you can see, with the amount of tables that you can derive here, you have quite a bit of flexibility for how you'd want to go about and use this. And like I said, you have control over start and end pitch for each piece. And that's actually just the one last thing that I wanted to touch on before we move on. You also have real-time pitch shifting ability with the phrases. So even if you find something that you really like, say rooted in E natural, if you were playing in E flat, which I tend to do a lot when I'm playing guitar because I have my guitars tuned half step, you can go ahead and just very simply drop this down to -1, and then that's going to change the root key to E flat. So that is basically what it's going to sound like here. And if we bring it back up. So very powerful option right there, and very handy if you're going to need to transpose any of these phrases at any time. All right, so here we're looking at the multi-sample staccato patch. We have up here, it's just the alternating intervals, and then at the bottom I have my key switches set up to change the actual syllable that we're hearing on the staccato patches. So for this particular passage right here, I go through quite a few of the different vowels in sequence. So as you can see, we have oo, and then we have a piano and forte version of o, a piano and forte version of a, and then also m. So let me just play this for you right now so you can hear what it sounds like. And you can take a look at how the vowels are changing and then also what's going on in the transient window right here. All right, so let me just go back and show you this as well, just to show you how the multi-samples are arranged in here with the various round robins per sample. So you could take a look at the transient window, and it's pretty cool. For, let's say I'm going to do a sequence of 4 notes here, you could take a look at how the transient changes on each one. So you're visually seeing what's going on with the round robins. So gives you a bit of a visual representation of what you're seeing with the multi-sample staccatos right there. All right, so there's one last very important feature that I want to show you on the staccato patches, and that is the time stretching capability that you have. This works very well with Contact 5's Time Machine Pro, because now you can also manually manipulate the length of the staccatos, which is going to be very handy. So just to show you for purposes of demonstration, I have this down to a low value of 35, and I will sequentially move it up so you can hear how the sample expands and contracts. So from 35, and we'll move up. So very, very useful feature here. I've actually, in current projects, I'll use this and I'll manipulate this with a CC command so that I can fluctuate the timing of the staccatos within the context of a track, which is very handy to do so you're not having to set up so many multiple tracks to do something. You can do it all contained within one unit. All right, and so lastly, we're at the True Legato patch, which I've put together a figure at the end of this cue. So just a couple things we want to take a look at on the interface. We should be familiar with these commands at this point. We have swell, which is your general dynamic, which comes auto-assigned to CC1, which you could see here in my controller lane I'm using as I'm going through the legato transitions. And you have attack, offset, release, release volume, legato enable, the speed between the legato transitions, the intensity of the transition itself, which I have set to full value of 127, and the amount of voices if you want to do polyphonic legato, and the range between the notes that need to be set in order to trigger that polyphonic legato. Now, importantly too, I want to just point out this here, under the play mode, I have this set to natural, which we were discussing earlier in the screencast. Reason I wanted to do that is when you come over here and take a look at, say, B2 and E3, those are the ending notes of this legato line. Now, having it set to this exact length and set to natural mode, it's going to release naturally based upon Linda's actual performance. So this won't loop. However, if you wanted to do that, you could do that just by setting this to infinite mode. So let me go ahead and play this for you so you can hear exactly what we're talking about there. Alright, so that brings us to the end of this screencast. I hope you found the information within informative and or entertaining. As always, for more information on this product as well as many others, head on over to Soundiron.com for more details. Once again, this is Ryan Scully. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to go through this screencast with me, and I look forward to doing it again with you in the future. Thanks a lot, and have a good one.